Thank you. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start with a sigh of relief. We were, to be quite honest, quite nervous yesterday afternoon. We've been watching this storm grow in intensity and size and threat. And yesterday afternoon, when we understood it was veering a little bit further to the west, we were on high alert. We issued a curfew, and for anyone who is questioning whether what they've been hearing from the media was a legitimate concern, I want to reinforce this. Every indication that we had from every weather service out there indicated that this could be a very dangerous threat to Orange County. This is one of those cases where we were very fortunate and dodged a bullet. When at about 11 o'clock, the reports came in that the storm was shifting to the east. And I think I've said one thing throughout, and that is hurricanes are unpredictable. The most important thing that we need to do is to make sure that each of us are prepared. And I could not be more proud of the citizens here in Orange County for how seriously they took this. Let me give you a couple of examples. We had over 1,400 people who took refuge in Orange County shelters. That does not include the people that left to stay with loved ones, family members that were living in mobile homes or other places that may not have sustained the winds. So thank you, one and all, for making sure that you and your families were well cared for. 80 of those individuals with special needs were housed at two of our special needs shelters. And I had the opportunity to visit with a shelter last night. And I have to tell you that the care that they received from the shelter workers, not just care, but compassion, was unmeasured by anything I've seen. It was very, very helpful to the folks that were there. And if it hadn't been for them being there, I fear that we may have lost some of those people. So we are very grateful to our shelter workers. We're extremely grateful to our citizens. We also issued a curfew, and I'm going to let the sheriff speak to that. But by and large, the overwhelmingly positive response to that curfew is also something I'm enormously proud of with this community. You allowed us to do what we needed to do, to be on the streets without traffic congestion, and you made sure that you and your loved ones were safe by staying in your homes. So thank you for that. We did lose power by standards of the coast, nothing comparable, but we have 65,355 residents without power as of 1 o'clock today. Duke Energy and OUC are working hard to restore service as quickly and as safely as they can. If you need more information, I would encourage you, if you have access to the internet, to go to Duke Energy or OUC via the internet or call them directly for more information. A word of caution, those that are without power but are able to hear this message, if you are using generators, please be careful that your generators are placed outside, not in your house, not in your garage. They need to be outside in a well-ventilated area. We saw lives lost during Andrew when people were using their generators, and I want to make sure that everyone is aware of the dangers of the gas that can be put out by generators. So be cautious about that. When your power comes back on, be cautious about using any food that's in your refrigerator, okay? Sounds like the mom is coming out of me, but sometimes we forget about those little things. So use extreme caution with your family, and I've said it before, but if you have debris around your house and you're cleaning up, please be really careful with your own safety and protection. With that said, we are lifting as of 2 o'clock, which was about 7 minutes ago, the curfew for Orange County, for all of Orange County. Having said that, I'm going to say what I said yesterday before we put the curfew in. Use extreme caution. We still have some power lines down. We still have a few intersections where the traffic signals aren't working. The overwhelming majority of them are functioning. We still have some trees and debris that may be on the roadways. We've gotten all of our teams out to do what we call windshield visits to make sure that we're trying to see what the hazards are in the roadway. Things are looking relatively good, but you need to use extreme caution when you're driving around during this intermittent time before we have everything cleaned up. And if you do see additional concerns or you see any obstructions that you think we need to know about, please call 311 and report it so that we can respond as quickly as possible. Again, I want to thank our citizens, but I also want to recognize our emergency responders, our emergency management team that has been here with me working throughout the night. And I also want to, as I mentioned before, recognize our shelter teams that have been there for those most in need. And I want to thank the role of the media. You guys have been outstanding. And every time we have a crisis or an emergency, we have some of the best local media teams in, I think, the country. So thank you for your dedication to our citizens. And now it's my pleasure to call on our Sheriff, Jerry Demings, for an update from his perspective.
Again, thank you, Mayor. It has been a privilege to work with such an extraordinary team of professionals who are the first responders here and others to help ensure the safety of this community. I'm going to talk a little bit about putting our community back together now so that our citizens can return to some sense of normalcy. We have been working now with our theme parks and other businesses now to try to get them back open, and the curfew is certainly going to be very important to allowing the employees to return back to work during the coming hours. We are going to continue our patrols throughout Orange County. There's still a number of businesses that are closed. I want to reassure those business owners and residents who did evacuate that we are going to continue patrolling their neighborhoods. As it relates to the curfew that the mayor talked about, last evening, while the overwhelming majority of our residents adhere to the curfew, there were 6 arrests, to my knowledge, here in Orange County in which individuals were arrested. The Orange County Sheriff's Office made 5 arrests and the Orlando Police Department 1. Including 2 individuals who were out trying to burglarize businesses. We said to everyone that if you didn't stay in, we were not going to allow our environment, our community, to be one where individuals would go out and prey upon innocent people here. And so, sadly, 6 individuals did get arrested. And now we're going to continue, again, those patrols in our community until the businesses are able to reopen, et cetera. And the mayor indicated that there's still some power outages, and we know that creates some challenges in many ways for the overall security of our community. So we're here to, again, be the type of first responders and law enforcement agencies that you will have us to be. We appreciate the fact that you listened and you heeded our warnings, if you will, in the direction that was given. That is really the kind of community that we have here in the metropolitan Orlando area. So we do thank you for that. And having said that, I believe I'm turning it over to the fire chief. Is that right, Mayor? Okay, yes.
Good afternoon, and I want to reiterate some of the things that have been said today. Certainly our priority has always been the safety, survivability, and that of our community, and really this doesn't happen without a coordinated effort. When you look at all the agencies that came together in the preparation prior to the storm, the way that the community responded to a lot of the warnings that we put out there with their evacuation of the mobile homes, going to the shelters, this bodes well for our community. While this storm didn't have the direct impact that we had, if it had, we were prepared. We had everybody in place in order to respond. Over the nighttime hours, fire rescue calls were down significantly, but in the morning it started picking up. Our crews were out there doing the windshield surveys, assessing damage throughout the community so we could put the right resource where the need was within the community. And that is a testament to all the people that have worked within the EOC, coordinating our response. And now that is what's going to lead to the resiliency that we have as a community. And that bodes well, not just for this storm, but for everyone that comes after it. So I'm extremely proud of the response of the community, all the people that came together, certainly fire rescue employees that sacrificed time with their families and preparations with their family to respond to the community. And I couldn't be prouder of the overall effort and the coordination, not only at the local level, but the state and the federal level as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to hear from Edward Johnson. He's the CEO with Lynx. We've invited him here to give an update on their plans for service, because a big part of returning to normal life here is the service that we get from Lynx. Thank you, Edward.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. As the Mayor and Sheriff Demmings and the Chief have already mentioned, we're trying to get the community back to a sense of normalcy. So Lynx, in that effort, in that vein, has started limited services at 2 p.m. today. As the hours pass by, we will continue to ramp our services up to reflect the normal schedule that we run on Fridays. We are working with certain businesses that have services that will conclude earlier on Friday evenings. We will continue to operate those routes a lot later to make sure that employees are getting into the business place to continue to support those agencies. We ask that the ridership as well as business owners go to our website, to our Facebook page, Twitter page, as well as contact our customer service department on the specific routes that are currently operating and the levels of services that will be picking up later today. You can reach our customer service department at 407-841-LYNX. Thank you very much, Mayor Jacobs.
And in just a minute, I'm going to open it up to any questions you have. Let me introduce that we also have here joining us today Ron Plummer, Manager of Emergency Management. We have Commissioner Ted Edwards, who's the District 5 representative who serves much of East Orange County, and we have Commissioner Victoria Siplin, who served District 6, and we appreciate having each of you here. One last mention, if I could. If you are aware of anyone who has special medical needs that is still in their homes but has lost power or does lose power over the next several days, please urge them to reach out to us if they are dependent upon electricity to run any type of medical assistance equipment. And it is not too late to avail yourself to the services of our shelters if you're in that situation. So if anyone has lost power, and is struggling with that issue, again, reach out to us. If it's an immediate life-threatening need, obviously call 911. Otherwise, call 311. But we want to make sure that everyone has the proper care that they need to weather the rest of the aftermath of this storm. Thank you so much for being here. And do you have any questions?
Mayor, was there ever a point where first responders had to not go out because of the wind speeds? Sometimes it's 40 miles an hour. Other jurisdictions say 50. Was there a time when you had to consider the safety factors there?
Chief?
We were monitoring throughout the county, and we have monitors in all of our stations, so we took that on an individual basis. But to directly answer your question, no, there was not ever a time that we felt that the risk that the winds posed would stop us from responding. We were ready to do that. In fact, we had the orders already written, but it never got to that point.
Sheriff, who were these guys? There's 5 that you arrested, and then OPD 1, just people that were flippant and didn't listen to it or didn't care?
I believe there were 5 males, 1 female, and there were people involved in other illegal activity as well. So they were criminals, and they were individuals that did not want to adhere to the direction that was given to them.
Mayor, your team did a tremendous job. 2 o'clock, I'm a little surprised. So your assessment is you've had your team in the field, we're ready to go, back to normal?
With caution, we're going to do what we did all day yesterday, and that is we're going to ask citizens to observe caution. If you don't need to be out on the roads, we're still urging you just to stay home the rest of this day. If you need to go back to work, that is always, work is exempt, but obviously if you need to go back to work, if you have medical needs, if there's something you really have to do it. If you're going out to sightsee, so let me tell you this, there's not that much to see, for starters, okay? But still, we would urge you to try to stay off the roads so that we can do our job and get things cleared and get the whole community back to work as soon as possible.
I wanted to play on that before I give my colleague colleagues a chance, the trees and so forth, can you give people at home watching an idea? How, you talking a couple days, a week?
Oh, I'm hoping that we have trees cleared from all of our roadways. Realistic expectation on that, Ajit? End of tomorrow? I would hope the end of today, but you know.
Clear the trees end of tomorrow. Signals should be all operating except the power's out.
Yeah, I was hoping to be able to give you an exact count on the signals, but we're working feverishly to get the signals up. The winds have died down enough that we're able to do that, and we are clearing trees as quickly as we can. And so we as Ajit said, end of day tomorrow, worst case scenario, but hopefully sooner.
Mayor, some of our live viewers are asking, they're in Hispanic communities on Cimarron Boulevard. A lot of them don't have electricity. They want to know how long is it going to take to get their power back?
Oh, my gosh, I wish I could answer that. Let me direct you to either Duke Energy or OUC, depending upon who their service provider is, because I wouldn't want to try to guess at that. I know they're working as hard as they can and as fast as they can. But I would also remind everybody that Duke Energy, for instance, serves a much broader area. And while our numbers are relatively low within the region, they're very high. So I wouldn't venture to guess. In the meantime, you need to take appropriate precautions if you're without power. And I'm glad they're able to communicate, and I hope they heard my message as well. If you have anybody with special needs, make sure that they reach out to us so we can make sure they get proper care.
Mayor, when you realized that we had dodged this bullet, and you said there was a sigh of relief, what were your thoughts? What were you thinking?
Well, to be honest with you, when we started to see it tracking a little further to the east, I mean, there was a sense of cautious relief. But as we saw, I mean, this hurricane was starting to wobble, and I don't think there was a point until sometime in the wee hours of the morning that I started to really believe that we had dodged this bullet. Tremendous relief, because the greatest thing you worry about is loss of life. And we had that with Charlie. And I just, you never want to see that. You don't want to see it as a human being. I got to tell you, when you're the mayor, you kind of feel like you adopted a very large family. And I take every one of those lives really seriously. So I was enormously relieved. Yeah. And when I went to the special needs shelter and saw so many people there where they were supposed to be, some with very, very small children, some very old, all in amazingly good spirits and all having incredibly good care, felt really good to know that we have the kind of community that responds the way they're supposed to. Thanks for asking. Yes.
I understand that this is not necessarily the government's purview, but do you have any sense for when businesses might be opening again and when gas might be available in the area, that sort of thing?
My expectation is, now that we've listed this curfew, I would imagine that you will see that happening pretty quickly. So my expectation is that most businesses want to get back to earning a living for their employees. So I think they'll be back to work pretty soon. Certainly by the end of the day, I would think most would be.
Can you give us a sense of what kind of damage there is and where are the hardest hit places?
It's interesting because, for instance, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. For instance, the power outages are spread throughout. I mean, they're definitely a little heavier on the east, but they are fairly sporadic. We didn't see, intense concentrations. So as we expected, more damage on the east, but there's, it's pretty consistent. Again, it's a lot better than we anticipated, and I'm very relieved. The only message, I'm going to say it, if we have another hurricane, don't look back at this and say, it's not a real threat, because I've been through that, and just when you get complacent is when you get a very bad awakening to reality. So yes, ma'am.
How does this hurricane compare to Charlie? You mentioned you had loss of life in Charlie. I was talking to Linda Parker, and they said Matthew, they survived so much better than Charlie.
Yeah, for Charlie, one of the huge problems, we had a great deal of rain. We also, though, had a tree canopy. It would have been so many years since we had a hurricane that I think a lot of the damage from tree limbs, from trees going down, was more than we had anticipated and caused more power outages and a lot more hazards after the fact of people trying to deal with cleaning their own properties in a not altogether safe way. You know, like I said, we think we're invincible sometimes, and so this, I think we're doing. Expect we will do better in the recovery, and we've survived this storm better than Charlie. Any other questions?
Any surprises, problems? I mean, it worked so efficiently, but you've learned from '04, obviously. You and I worked together when you were commissioner, remember? So,
oh my gosh, do you remember it?
Yeah. Amazing.
And Ajit Lachandani was our county administrator, and he has put so many things in place as a result of 2004. I mean, the relationships, the connections, the information flow is infinitely better than it was coming into 2004. And I give him 100% of the credit for pulling that together. But you know what? We will debrief next week, and we'll look at what didn't work just as we needed it to, and we'll continue to work on improving it.
Does anything come to mind? Anything you weren't happy with, you could have done better? Or, I know you're doing it on the fly, obviously.
Yeah, you know, just always making sure that if a phone call comes in, that it gets responded to appropriately, that the adequate resources are there to meet people's needs in a timely fashion. You know, there's always room for, the intercommunication. I mean, it's amazing. Sometimes you over-communicate, and we have 5 or 6 different calls coming in to different people, all in the same question. We saw that some today. So I think 90% of what I would say we continue to work on is communication and trying to make it as efficient as possible so that we don't drown in our own communication tools.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Please.
Jerry. Traffic, once everything opens up, is going to be a big issue, especially explain to everybody if they come to an intersection where the lights are out and we don't have mass mayhem at the major intersection.
Well, that's why our citizens do need to continue using caution when they move about. I believe there's just a few number of intersections where the lights are out. In some of those intersections, they may see law enforcement officers from throughout the region who are dedicated to those areas to assist in that process to ensure that they're able to motor through the community safely. So we'll be out and about. So it's not quite over yet, but again, I think we hope for the best in this case, and that's what happened.
I think the follow-up question is that for some of us who've been around through the hurricane before, and it was something new to us, the first rule was use it as a 4-way stop, yes?
That is correct. If the traffic signal is out, you should use it as a 4-way stop, and we all know how that works in our community. So whoever gets there first, if we can be courteous to the other motorists on the roadway, allow them to move through safely. So we're all in much better position if we do that. Okay, thank you.
But that is a great question, and you never want to correct the sheriff. But when he says we all know that, I'm amazed at the number of people that don't seem to know right now how to navigate a 4-way stop in general. So it is important that we all, because we get so far away from those tests that we took when we were 15 or 16, that we remember how this works. So thank you for asking. Any last questions? All right, wonderful. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much. This concludes our broadcast. Thank you.
The 6-month Atlantic hurricane season has been described as the mean season. It's no wonder.
It did make landfall, movement westerly away from the peninsula at 5 miles per hour, sustained winds